Introduction of inflation. This report is made purposely to show the concept of inflation. Inflation refers to a broad rise in the general prices of goods and services across the economy. It can be translated as the decline of eroding purchasing power over time for both consumers and businesses. Eventually, inflation can also be thought of as the devaluation of money. It can be a concern because it makes money saved in the present less valuable in the future. Inflation erodes both purchasing power and value of investments. There are many potential causes of inflation, such as cost-push inflation, demand-pull inflation, and the housing market. Cost-push inflation occurs when prices rise because production costs increase, such as raw materials and wages. The demand for goods is unchanged while the supply of goods declines due to the higher cost of production. As a result, the added cost of production are passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices for the finished goods. Next is demand-pull inflation, which can be caused by strong consumer demand for a product or service. When there's a surge in demand for a wide variety of goods across an economy, their prices tend to increase. While this is not often a concern for short-term imbalance of supply and demand, sustained demand can reverberate in the economy and raise costs for other goods. The result is demand pull inflation. Lastly, the housing market, for example, has seen its ups and downs over the years. If homes are in demand because the economy is experiencing an expansion, home prices will rise. The demand also impacts ancillary products and services that support the housing industry. Depending on one's state or one's stance and the rate of change, inflation can be viewed as either a good or a bad thing. There are some advantages and disadvantages because of inflation. For example, moderate inflation is a sign of economic growth and sustained moderate. Stable inflation can prolong the growth. This is because prices and wages naturally increase in tandem, allowing consumers to continue borrowing and purchasing while allowing businesses to make more money. However, high inflation, while it may create a booming market for a moment, is not necessarily sustainable. This is because it leads to unpredictable boom and bust cycles. The economy will be chugging along great for a bit, but then prices or wages will hit the wall and things will become unaffordable quickly. On the other hand, inflation can be controlled by a contractionary monetary policy is one common method of managing inflation. A contractionary policy aims to reduce the supply of money within an economy by lowering the prices of bonds and rising interest rates. Thus, consumption falls, prices fall, and inflation slows down.
Background of Malaysia. History of Malaysia. Malaysia was established on 16 September 1963. Malaysia comprised the territories of Malaya, the island of Singapore, and the colonies of Sarawak and Sabah in northern Borneo. Singapore seceded from the Federation and became an independent republic in August 1965. Malaysia is composed of two non-contiguous regions, which is Peninsular Malaysia, also called West Malaysia, which is on the Malay Peninsula, and East Malaysia, which is on the island of Borneo. Kuala Lumpur is the capital of Malaysia, lies in the western part of the peninsula. The mainland and the island of Southeast Asia were connected by the Malay Peninsula. Because Malaysia itself is divided between the two regions, the history of the country can be understood only within a broad geographic context. The Strait of Malacca has been a crossroads for peoples, cultures, and trade passing through or taking root in both areas. Influence from China, India, the Middle East, and later Europe follow the maritime trade. Peninsular Malaysia and the two states of East Malaysia, Sarawak and Sabah, have shared many historical patterns, but each region also have developed in unique ways. Population of Malaysia. Based on Worldometer elaboration of the latest United Nations data, the current population of Malaysia is 34,649,193 as of Sunday, June 9, 2024, with Kota Baru as the state with the most people, which is 1,459 and 994 people, followed by Kuala Lumpur and Kelang, which are 1,453 and 975 and 879, 867 people respectively. A total of 34,308,525 people has been estimated as Malaysian population for the middle of 2023. Malaysian population is equivalent to 0.43% of the total world population. In the list of countries and dependencies by population, Malaysia has ranked 46. Economic sector of Malaysia. There are a few economic sectors in Malaysia, which is service sector, manufacturing, and mining sector. First, the service sector grew by 10.9% in 2022 in Malaysia, mainly supported by the wholesale and retail trade, transportation and storage, as well as real estate and business service subsectors. The performance was attributed to the upswing in tourism-related activities following the reopening of international borders, increased consumer spending, higher adoption of digitalization across all sectors, as well as improved demand for professional service. Other than that, the manufacturing sector expanded by 8.1% in 2022 as rising global demand and expansion in domestic industry further supported the production activities. The export-oriented industries, which constitute 96.2% of the manufacturing sector, grew by 7.1%, while the domestic-oriented industry increased by 10.3%. Within the export-oriented industries, the E&E segment continued to lead the performance driven by strong demand from the global semiconductor market, especially for chip products. The chemical segment also improved owing to higher demand for industrial products. Notably for digital-related usage following greater adoption of advanced technology. The mining sector rose by 3.4% in 2022, underpinned by strong performance of natural gas subsector and improvement in crude oil and condensate subsector, particularly in the second half of the year. The natural gas subsector continued to drive the sector's growth on account of higher natural gas output from existing and new gas fields in Sarawak and Terengganu. Meanwhile, the resumption of a major oil field operation in Sabah supported the crude oil and condensate subsector. Leader of Malaysia. The Prime Minister of Malaysia is the head of government of Malaysia. The executive branch of the federal government was directed by the Prime Minister. The first Prime Minister of Malaysia is Tunku Abdul Rahman Putra Al-Haj Ibni Almarhum Sultan Abdul Hamid Halim Shah. He was the first Chief Minister of the Federation of Malaya from 1955 to 1957. As an independent Malaysian's first Prime Minister, he dominated the country politics for the next 13 years. He is often referred to as Father of Independence and Father of Malaysia. Anwar bin Ibrahim is a Malaysian politician who is the 10th and current Prime Minister of Malaysia since 2022. He was born on 10 August 1947 in Ceruk Tok Kun, Bukit Mertajam, Penang. He is a simple-minded political figure and reformer. He has been the chairman of the Pakatan Harapan PH coalition since 2020 and the second president of the People's Justice Party PKR since 2018. Main discussion. Overview of inflation. The Palestine-Israel war could potentially impact consumer prices in Malaysia due to supply chain disruptions. Malaysia's economic growth will be affected should the Palestine-Israel conflict escalate further into a conflict involving Arab countries in the region. If the scale of the conflict widened, it would have a significant impact, especially in terms of rising oil prices and trade supply chain disruption. The ongoing conflict between Palestine and Israel has spurred Malaysians to intensify their efforts in boycotting products associated with Israel, leading to substantial impacts on business, including shortened operating hours and reduced salaries for employees. Analyze the data, trend and issue related to the inflation of Malaysia. Inflation in Malaysia is typically measured by the Consumer Price Index, CPI, which tracks changes in the price of a basket of goods and services consumed by households. BNM sets an inflation target to guide its monetary policy decisions. As the recent information, the inflation target range has been around 2 to 3% per annum. Malaysia has experienced high inflation rates in recent years influenced by various factors including global commodity price, government policy, and domestic economic conditions. COVID-19 pandemic impact that happened a few years ago significantly affected Malaysia's economy, causing disruptions in supply chains and demand dynamics, which in turn influenced inflation trends. Government responses, such as stimulus measures and financial support, also play a role in shaping inflation's outcomes. Furthermore, food and fuels prices are critical components affecting inflation in Malaysia. Fluctuations in global food price as well as changes in fuel price particularly impact the cost of living for Malaysians. The effect of deflation can erode purchasing power and reduce the standard of living of consumers, especially affecting low-income households. Apart from that, government policy and subsidies on goods and services are important, as they can reduce inflationary pressures or worsen them depending on their implementations. This is because consumer and business expectations of future inflations can influence current inflation through their spending and investment behavior.
Why the rate of inflation in Malaysia dramatically increased in 2024? The rate of inflation in Malaysia dramatically increased due to several factors, which may include any disruption in global supply chains, exacerbated by factors like natural disaster or geopolitical tension, could lead to shortage and higher price of goods. This scarcity drives up prices as demand outstrips supply. In addition, Description of the local currency against major currencies can make imports more expensive, contributing to higher inflation rates, especially in import-dependent economies like Malaysia. Furthermore, when aggregate demand in the economy rises faster than productive capacity, it can lead to demand pull inflation. This can occur due to increased consumer spending, investment, or government expenditure. Other than that, increase in production costs like wages or raw material can lead to higher prices for finished goods and services. This cost push inflation can occur due to factors such as labor shortage or higher global commodity prices. Lastly, changes in monetary policy, such as increased money supply or interest rates, can impact inflation. Loose monetary policy can stimulate demand, but also potentially lead to inflationary pressures if not managed carefully.
What are the reasons of Malaysia facing increasing trend in unemployment rate? There can be several reasons contributing to an increasing trend in Malaysia's unemployment rate. Some of the key factors could include economic downturn or recession. A general slowdown in economic growth or a recession can lead to reduced business activity, layoffs, and a decrease in hiring. This results in higher unemployment rates as job opportunities become scarce. Second, structural unemployment. This occurs when there is a mismatch between the skills possessed by the workforce and the skills demanded by employers. Structural unemployment can arise due to technological changes, shifts in industry demand, or inadequate education and training systems that fail to equip workers with relevant skills. Thirdly, cyclical unemployment. This type of unemployment is tied to the economic cycle. During downturns, businesses may cut back on production and reduce their workforce, leading to higher unemployment rates until the economy improves. Finally, government policies is one of the factors that contribute to the trend of increasing trend unemployment rates. This is because changes in labor laws, minimum wage policies, or incentives for hiring could affect employment levels in various sectors.
So, let's move to the impact of boycott on inflation in Malaysia. The first point is change in consumer purchasing behaviors. When consumers boycott certain products or brands, they often turn to alternative goods. This shift changed the demand landscape, leading to an increased demand for substitute products. For instance, when consumers stop buying from international brands like McDonald's, they look for local dining options instead. This increased demand for alternatives can lead to higher prices as business adjust to the new consumer preferences. The second point is impact on specific companies. A notable example is the boycott of McDonald's in Malaysia, driven by its perceived involvement in political issues like the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This boycott led to a noticeable drop in McDonald's sales. When consumers divert their spending from such multinational corporations to local business, it not only affects the revenues of the targeted companies, but also puts additional pressure on the supply chain and pricing of local substitutes. The third point is increased demand for substitutes. As a result of these boycotts, the demand for substitute products surged. When a significant number of consumers stopped purchasing from a boycotted brand, the local businesses or alternative products experienced a spike in demand. This sudden increase can strain supply chains, leading to higher prices for this alternative. In Malaysia, local food outlets saw a rise in patronage as a result of the McDonald's boycott, which, in turn, contributed to price increases in the local food sector. The next point is economic strain on consumers and businesses. Higher prices driven by increased demand for alternatives put a strain on consumers, especially those with fixed incomes. Additionally, businesses facing boycotts might experience higher production costs as they try to navigate supply chain adjustments. These increased costs often get passed down to consumers, compounding the inflationary pressure. So, here the last point is job losses and reduced income. Businesses targeted by boycotts may see a significant drop in sales, which can result in job cuts and reduced income for employees. This reduction in household income means less money is available for overall spending, further slowing economic activity. For example, employees of boycotted business like McDonald's might face a layoff or reduced hours, impacting their purchasing power and contributing to broader economic challenge.
Monetary policy. Monetary policy refers to the way government manage the supply of money and interest rate to influence the economic activities of the country. The primary goals of monetary policy is to achieve economic stability, which encompasses objectives such as controlling inflation, promoting sustainable economic growth, and maintaining the stability of the national currency. Monetary policy and inflation in Malaysia are closely interconnected as the central bank, known as Bank Negara Malaysia (BNM), employs various tools and strategies to achieve its monetary policy objective, including managing inflation. Among the monetary tools used include increasing the stationary reserve ratio, increasing the cash reserve ratio, raising interest rates, tightening lease purchase condition, and selling government securities. One of the causes of inflation is due to increased demand of imported goods. Therefore, BNM needs to raise interest rates by using the overnight policy rate OPR and its main monetary policy tools. Changes in the OPR affect interest rate across the economy, affecting the cost of borrowing for businesses and consumers. By raising or lowering the OPR, BNM aims to control inflationary pressure. When BNM raises interest rate through an increase in OPR, loans become more expensive. This could dampen consumer spending and investment, which may reduce demand pull inflation. Besides that, BNM conducts OMO to manage liquidity in the banking system. These operations involve buying and selling government securities to adjust the amount of money available to banks and influence short-term interest rates. Adjustment in the money supply via OMO and SRR will affect the availability of credit in the economy. Controlling the money supply helps BNM manage inflationary pressures arising from excess demand. In addition, BNM mandates that banks hold a certain percent of their deposit as reserves. Adjustment to the SRR can impact the amount of money banks can lend, thereby affecting economic activity and inflation. BNM may also intervene in foreign exchange market to influence the Malaysian ringgit's value. Change in exchange rates can impact import price, which in turn affect domestic inflation. In summary, monetary policy in Malaysia plays a critical role in managing inflation through various tools like interest rates, open market operations, and reserve requirement. BNM's actions are aimed at achieving its inflation target while supporting sustainable economic growth and financial stability in the country. Understanding these dynamics helps stakeholders, including businesses and consumers, maintaining the economic stability of the country and fostering balanced long-term economic growth.
In Malaysia, addressing inflation through monetary policy, specifically by increasing the cash reserve ratio, involve the central bank requiring commercial banks to hold a higher percentage of their deposits as the reverse rather than lending them out. By raising this ratio, the central bank aims to reduce the amount of money circulating in the economy, thereby curbing inflationary pressures. This policy tool restricts the availability of credit, making borrowing more expensive and slowing down consumer spending and investment. Ultimately, the objective is to stabilize prices by moderating demand and ensuring a more sustainable economic growth trajectory. Next, in addressing inflation through monetary policy in Malaysia, tightening lease purchase conditions involve the central bank imposing stricter requirements on leasing and financial arrangement for purchasing assets such as vehicle and equipment. By raising down payment requirements of increasing interest rates on leases, the central bank aims to reduce consumer spending and investment in durable goods, thereby slowing down overall economic activity. This measure is intended to curb inflationary pressures by demanding demand and controlling the growth of credit in the economy, ultimately aiming for stable prices and sustainable economic growth over the longer term. Recommendation. To address the persistent issue of inflation in Malaysia, a strategic application of monetary policy by Bank Negara Malaysia, BNM, is essential. One effective measure is adjusting the overnight policy rate, OPR. By incrementally raising interest rates, BNM can curtail excessive borrowing and spending, thereby cooling down inflationary pressures. This approach helps to decrease consumer demand, which in return can slow the rise of prices. It's crucial for BNM to monitor economic indicators closely and adjust the OPR based on real-time data to maintain a balance between controlling inflation and supporting economic growth. Controlling the money supply is another vital strategy. By employing open market operations, such as buying or selling government securities, BNM can influence the amount of money circulating in the economy. This helps to prevent an excess money supply, which often leads to inflation. Additionally, setting reserve requirements for banks ensure that there is a limit on the amount that they can lend, further stabilizing the economy. Strengthening the Malaysian ringgit (MYR) through foreign exchange market interventions can also mitigate inflation. A stable and strong MYR reduce the cost of imports, including essential goods and commodities, thereby controlling inflationary pressure. Using foreign exchange reserve to support the MYR during volatile periods and implementing policies that attract foreign investment and can contribute to currency stability. Adopting an implicit inflation targeting framework will ensure inflation expectation and exchange policy transparency by setting a clear medium-term inflation target, such as 2 to 3% per year. Regularly publishing detailed information report, BNN can provide a reliable benchmark for economic performance. This transparency helps manage public and market expectation, ensuring more predictable economic conditions. Finally, improving the collection and analysis of economic data is critical for informed decision-making. Investing in advanced technology and data analytic capabilities will enable BNM to better understand and predict inflationary trends. Accurate data collection supports timely and effective policy adjustment, ensuring that Malaysia can maintain economic stability and control inflation over the long term. By implementing these monetary policy measures, Malaysia can effectively manage inflation, ensuring sustainable economic growth and stability.
From our understanding, inflation refers to a broad rise in the general prices of goods and services across the economy. Inflation itself can give a bad impact to the country, but there are some ways government and citizens can take to control of it. For example, inflation in Malaysia can be controlled because of the boycott activities from people that are looking for alternative products in protest against Zionism. Although a lot of people may lose their job, but it is necessary in order to decrease inflation. A lot of these boycotted products are constantly much higher in price compared to their competitors, and it make it much easier for protesters to pick the alternative with lower costs such as Biko or Ramly Burger. Thus, inflation in Malaysia can be controlled, ensuring sustainable economic growth and stability.